Well, today's daf is daf Gimel, and the Gemara on the bottom of daf Beis Amud Beis presented a thesis that Hakadosh Baruch Hu saw that the Bnei Noach, the peoples of the world, were not fulfilling even the seven mitzvahs that they were given. So therefore, Hakadosh Baruch Hu was mafkir those mitzvahs from them, such that they would not be given any schar, any reward for fulfilling those mitzvahs. The Gemara thinks originally that God, in a sense, gave them a reward for not fulfilling the mitzvahs that a Ben Noach is obligated in by alleviating those responsibilities, and therefore, henceforth, they would not be held liable and punishable for violating those seven mitzvahs. But the Gemara says that that's not so. This is not a reward for them because God is now robbing them and denying them any reward for the fulfilling of the mitzvahs. But the bottom line is that the Gemara now is of the opinion that when a Ben Noach fulfills any of the mitzvahs Bnei Noach, he does not get rewarded. So the Gemara says velo. Now we're on the top of Daf Gimel Amud Aleph in the second line. V'asadya, we have a statement in a brisa in the name of Rabbi Meir that minayin shafilu ovid kolcham v'yosek b'torah shu k'kohen gadol, that a scholar amongst the nations of the world who studies the Torah, what it means by Torah here is the Zion Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, that part of the Torah that's shaykh to them, then he'll get rewarded as if he was a Kohen Gadol. And how do we know this? Talmud Lomar, we know this from Asher Yasel Samha Adam V'chai Bahem, the emphasis on the word Adam. Adam means even a non-Jew, because Kohanim Levim Yisrael Lo Nemar. It doesn't say anything here about a Kohen or a Levi or a Yisrael. It only says that Adam. And yet it says V'chai Bohem, implying that they would get schar. And this is how Rabbi Meir derives his conclusion. The Gemara assumes that everybody agrees to Rabbi Meir that a Ben Noach will get rewarded, and in this case for studying Torah, but in general for fulfilling the Zion Mitzvah Bnei Noach. El Lomar Lecha, but what does it mean that HaKadosh Baruch Hu became aware of the fact that Bnei Noach were not fulfilling the seven mitzvahs and therefore he was mafkir those mitzvahs? It means he lowered them one notch down from a chova to a reshus. Lo melcha she'ein mekabel aleim schar k'mitzuvah osel k'misha eina mitzuvah v'yosef. The Yomer Rab Chanina gadol ha-mitzuvah yosef misha eina mitzuvah yosef. So it comes out that the nations of the world would receive, if they fulfilled the mitzvos of Zion Mitzvahs B'nai Noach on a voluntary basis, they would be rewarded as an Eina Mitzvah V'yosa, but they're denied having the extra element of schar, of reward, for being a Mitzvah V'yosa, even though they originally got these seven mitzvahs as a tzivui. Now we go back to, if you recall, the arguments of the Ovid Kolchavim in the Day of Judgment. Elakach Omer Ovid Kolchavim Thnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What is the fundamental argument or claim that is put forth by the Yaakov, by the Ovid Kolchavim? Ribono shel olam, Yisrael shekibluhu heichan kimuhu. Are you telling me that you have evidence? Is somebody willing to testify to the fact that the Jewish people have fulfilled their 613 mitzvahs, and therefore you're judging them favorably? Yes. You know who's going to testify? I myself. Ani made by him shekimus kol Torah kula, that they fulfill the entire Torah. The nations of the world are not going to accept that argument. It's so fascinating that they're arguing against the Almighty. You have testified, God, that Yisrael are considered your sons, b'ni, and a father cannot testify on behalf of his son. So therefore, your testimony that the people of Israel fulfill the mitzvahs is not acceptable in a court of law. Okay, I'll accept your argument, But Shamayim v'aretz ya'idu b'hem shekimus kol tarkula. Let the heavens and the earth testify that the Bnei Yisrael have fulfilled the mitzvahs. And you can't say that they are excluded from Eidus because they don't have a status of a father vis-a-vis his son. Omrim lefanav, but the Umas Olam are not willing to accept that as well. They persevere in their argument. There's another disqualification in Eidus, and that's a Nogea Be'edus. What's a Nogea Be'edus? Someone who serves to gain and benefit from his testimony. We don't accept his testimony. Now, the only reason why Shamayim V'aretz can continue to exist is because Bnei Yisrael are fulfilling the mitzvahs. Shenemer im lo brisi yom v'layla chuko Shamayim V'aretz lo samti. So the Gemara quotes this pasuk in Yirmiyahu Navi to indicate that the only reason why the entire earth continues to exist, the whole universe, is because Klal Yisrael accepted the Torah. So you're going to tell me now that the Shamayim V'aretz is going to testify they have vested interests here. V'yomer Reb Shimon ben Lakish, Ma'idich Siv, what is the meaning of the pasuk at the beginning of the Torah? It says, Vayerev Vayvoka Yom HaShishi. Why the extra hey? Malamid HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hisna HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Maaseh Bereishis, the entire creation was contingent. And Omar, and he said to the creation, if Yisrael Makabel Torah Mutav, if Klal Yisrael on the 6th of Sivan will accept the Torah, then the world has a justification, Lav. But if the Jewish people decide to reject the Torah, not accept it, then Ani Machzir Eschem Utovavo, I'm going to revert the entire universe back to void and emptiness. When the Torah says, this is a pasuk in Tehillim, Mishamayim Hishmatam, just 1 second. Din Eretz Yara Vashketa, from heaven you made judgment, heard. The earth became afraid and grew calm. Strange contradiction in terms. Either the earth was afraid or the earth was calm. Which one will it be? Everything all right, Ira? Yeah. Im Yireya Lamashkata. If it's in a state of tension and fear, then why does the pasuk testify that it was calm? The Im Shketa, if the Torah says, the pasuk says he was calm, then Lama Yireya, why was it overcome by fear? Ella must be 2 stages. B'tchila Yireya. First, before Klal Yisrael accepted the Torah, the entire world was shaking to its bootstraps. You know, they didn't know what would be if they would continue to exist. That's called Yira. Well, Basov Shketa, but when Klal Yisrael accepted the Torah at the end, then they were calm. Anyway, we see clearly that the whole existence of heaven and the earth is contingent upon Klal Yisrael accepting the Torah, and therefore you cannot call upon heaven and earth to testify that the Jewish people have fulfilled the Torah because they are no Gibeadus. They have vested interests. You know what? Mikem Yavo. I have a chiddush for you. The testimony is going to come from the heathens themselves. Israel Shekimos and it is Goyim that will testify that Klal Yisrael accepted the Torah and fulfilled the Torah. For example, Yavo Nimrod v'Yoed v'Avram Shlo Avoda over Kol. Nimrod could testify that Avram refused to bow down and therefore he put his life into danger just to avoid Avodah Zara. Yavo Lavan, let Lavan come and testify about Yaakov Shlo Nechshad al Geza, that during these 7 years and then another 7 years Yaakov was not guilty of stealing anything. And Tova Eshes Potifera v'Toid b'Yosef Shlo Nechshad al Avera. And she'll be able to testify on behalf of Yosef that he fulfilled the Torah and he did not violate the issue of having a relationship with a married woman. Again, another example of the fact that Klal Yisrael are willing to give up their lives rather than worship Avodah Zara. Yavo Daria Yavesh, the Yoed Bidoniel, Shelo Bitel Es HaTfila. So we're talking about Darius, who can testify about the great Daniel, that he did not cease to pray, which means that King Darius had forbidden his subjects to pray to anyone other than to himself. He made himself into a deity, and Daniel defied that decree by continuing to pray to God, as was his former practice. For this infraction, Darius threw Daniel into the lion's den, and the rest is history. Yavo Bildad Hashuchi, these are the friends of Eov, Tzofran Amosi, Eliphaz Atemoni, and they will testify about Ya'idu B'hem B'Yisrael, Shekimu Es Kol Atar Kula, Shenemer Yitnu Eidehem V'Yitzdaku. Now, these friends of Eov came to give him nechama, to comfort him and console him after he was suffering so badly. And the Gemara says in Masechet Babasa Tesvav that these three gentlemen, friends of Eov, were actually Nevi'im. And the Gemara is saying that these Nevi'im, who were idol worshippers, will come and testify that the Jews fulfilled the Torah. Question why Bilam is not mentioned here. Okay, fine. Now, this pasuk that the Gemara quotes, Yitnu Eidehem V'Yitzdaku, is a pasuk that we started at the beginning of the Masechta on Daf Beis, when we substituted the word Eidehem with an ayin for Eidehem with an aleph. And therefore, the Gemara says that Yidnu Eidehem V'Yitzdaku is a reference to Klal Yisrael. So they'll bring the witnesses who will testify in favor of Klal Yisrael. Still, the nations of the world continue to insist, Amru L'Fanim Ribono Shel Olam, Tno Lanu Rosh V'Nasena. Hey, wait a second. You gave the Jewish people the Torah, they accepted the Torah. You never offered us the Torah. Maybe we would have accepted the Torah as well. What are you talking about? I'm going to give you a reward because theoretically you might have observed the Torah. If you prepared your food on Erev Shabbos, you'll have food on Shabbos. Now you want to give us a claim to the next world. What is that claim based on? What did you actually fulfill? Mitzvah kala yeshli. God all of a sudden softens his stand in his harsh judgment against the nations. He says, you know what? I'm going to test you out. I'm going to give you one easy mitzvah, and let's see what you're going to do with it. It's one of the world famous Gemaras in Agadah. The Sukkah Shema. So go make a sukkah, and then you'll be vindicated from all your sins, because we see how if we gave you the opportunity, you would have fulfilled the Torah. Why would God give another chance to the Goyim? What does it mean in the pasuk at the end in Parshas Vaschana? It says there, Asher Anochi Mitzavcha Yom Lasosam, right? Hayom and Lasosam. Reish Lakish says Hayom Lasosam v'lo lemoch Lasosam. Hayom Lasosam v'lo Hayom Litol Schar. So according to Reish Lakish, according to Rabbi Shimon ben Levi, this pasuk is coming to teach us that if you fulfill the mitzvahs, then tomorrow, meaning in the world to come, you'll get rewarded for those mitzvahs. God is very pleasant with his creatures, and he doesn't look to try to smash them. He'll give them, possibility of getting out if they have a good excuse. V'amri kari le mitzvah kala. Okay, fine. You're talking about sukkah. Why is that called the sukkah kala? A mitzvah kala. Kiss. It doesn't have to cost you a dime. For example, if somebody invites you to his sukkah, you didn't pay anything for his sukkah, and yet you can fulfill the mitzvah. After all, God gave them the opportunity to spare themselves from this harsh judgment. They immediately went up to the roof to build a sukkah, each one. HaKadosh Baruch Hu makdir aleim chama v'tkufas Tammuz. Somehow, it seems that year, the holiday of Sukkot was very, very early, during the period of Tammuz, the heat period. And each one of the goyim would kick the sukkah, couldn't tolerate the heat, and run away from the sukkah. Shenemar nitkina ninatkina esmoso semo v'nashlicha mimenu avosayim. Let us cut their cords and cast off their ropes. Makdir. What does makdir means? That the sun beats down very heavily. I mean, if God is bringing down the sun and beating it down, then it seems like Kadosh Baruch Hu is not giving much room here for the people to fulfill this mitzvah. He's allowing them to give excuses. And the answer is Mishum Yisrael Dami Zimni, because the Jewish people were also in the same situation where the blazing hot sun beat down on their sukkah.